Hello and welcome to a new episode of History in 7 Facts, the show in which we explore some interesting episodes of humanity's past. Check out this playlist to watch the entire series, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this one. The primary source about the Philistines is the Hebrew and Christian Bibles, where they are described more or less like brutes. To this day, in many languages, the word Philistine designates an uneducated, hypocrite, or lazy person. But were the Philistines that bad? Were they a barbaric tribe? 1,200 years before Christ, borders and political loyalties were just as changing and deceiving as they are today. At the time, many migrating tribes were reaching the shores of the Levant, the Middle East of today. The ancient Egyptians were calling them the Sea Peoples, and among those people were the Philistines, who defeated the Canaanites and settled on the eastern shore of the Mediterranean Sea. They settled the area between Gaza and Tel Qasil in modern Tel Aviv, basically controlling part of the trade route between Syria and Egypt. In this territory, a confederation of 5 city-states, the Pentapolis, was established between Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod, Ekron, and Gath. Each city was governed separately, but the 5 lords of the Philistines would cooperate closely and formed a well-established social, economic, and military unit. The Israelites and the Philistines have waged war with each other several times. But the main motivation behind these wars was territorial. A hint of this past can be found in the Bible. In Numbers, chapter 33, verse 51, it says, "When you cross the Jordan into Canaan, drive out all the inhabitants of the land before you. Destroy all their carved images and their cast idols, and demolish all their high places. Take possession of the land and settle in it, for I have given you the land to possess. But if you do not drive out the inhabitants of the land, those you allow to remain will become barbs in your eyes and thorns in your sides. They will give you trouble in the land where you will live." The Israelites viewed the Philistines as invaders of their holy land that was promised to them by God. This conflict that had religious connotations thus explains why the Israelites, and by extension the Christian world, came to view the Philistines as barbaric and aggressive. At one point, the Philistines even managed to capture the Ark of the Covenant, the sacred symbol of God's presence within the Jewish nation, which of course further infuriated the Israelites. But the Bible doesn't mention the long periods of peace and cohabitation between these two people, nor does it describe the lifestyle of the Philistines. Archaeological digs in Ashkelon and Ekron revealed a completely different picture from what we find in the Bible. The Philistines were good builders and experienced craftsmen. They built their cities well, with high walls, palaces, and even a sewage system. They had sophisticated looms and a flourishing economy. Their jewelry was fine and delicate. Art, music, trade. They all show that the Philistinian cities were bustling, cosmopolitan urban centers. The Philistines were also great metal workers. They knew how to forge iron and copper tools. The Israelites were forbidden to use iron weapons made in Philistine, and their tools could only be repaired by Philistine blacksmiths. This allowed the Philistines to have much better weapons than their neighbors. Viewed in this light, the famous battle between David and Goliath, who was a Philistine, is actually a story about how a weaker but God-fearing nation defeated a stronger but boastful band of heathens. But for David and his people, the lack of proper metal weapons led to their defeat on the battlefield on several occasions. Because of the animosity between these two nations, the perception of a barbaric Philistine tribe has endured to this day. But the archaeological evidence suggests otherwise, and it also suggests a surprising origin of this nation. The Philistines Pottery seems to point that this tribe came from the Aegean region between Greece and Turkey. The style of their pottery, the way they burned them in furnaces, and how they decorated them shows a distinct link between the two areas. Pottery fragments from the period of around 1500 BC have been found bearing inscriptions in non-Semitic languages, including one in Kypro-Minoan script. Thus, the idea that the Philistines were an Indo-European people is quite possible, although not proven yet. The English word Philistine comes from the Old French term philistine, which in turn is a derivation of the Hebrew plishtim. In Akkadian and ancient Egyptian, the term palusata was used, while the Romans used the word philistinus. In Luwian, a language spoken in Anatolia at the time, this tribe was called Phalistina or Palestina. These terms are the origin of the area's present designation, Palestine. While we may never know where the Philistines came from, it's worth noting that ancient Greek writers used the term Pelasgian for their ancestors or forerunners, a term that's caught the eye of many researchers since the 19th century. And there's also the ancient village of Paleste, an Illyrian locality found today in Albania. According to normal grammatical practices of the time, the inhabitants of that village would have been called Palestini. Regardless of their origin, we know today that the Philistines were not brutes, but a flourishing society. Nevertheless, they are now long gone. Their only legacy? The name of their kingdom, Palestine. The last written record of the Philistines as a distinct society comes from the 7th century BC, when the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar invaded the kingdom. For their time, they were an advanced and educated society that loved music and arts and were skilled warriors. But ultimately, their survival as a nation was not guaranteed, and on the long run, their weaker eastern neighbor managed to beat all odds in that regard. Thank you for watching this episode of 7 Facts. I hope this was interesting and informative, and maybe it even inspired you to look into it further on your own. If you liked this video, please thumbs up and subscribe. While you're downstairs, let me know what you think about this video. Please consider visiting my Patreon page and become a patron. The link is in the description. I hope to see you next time. Bye.